John, get up.
Not back here, please. We got it already.
What you've just seen has been variously described as a battle, a skirmish, a riot, and even a war. It has come to be known as the Battle of Stop 5. We offer WFMJ TV's coverage of the battle in competition under the category Best Spot News Coverage of 1969. On October 28, 1969, a controversy that had smoldered for 2 years culminated in a confrontation between two labor groups. On one side were members of FASH, the Fraternal Association of Steel Haulers. The other side was composed of members of Youngstown Teamster Local 377, aided by members from Teamster locals in Cleveland, Akron, Canton, and as far away as Detroit. Ironically, the FASH members were also members of the Teamsters Union. FASH was formed in 1967 by a dissident group of Teamsters, primarily steel haulers, who complained that the Teamster Union did not fully or adequately represent them in negotiations with the trucking firms for whom they drove. A long steel haulers strike, marked many times by violence throughout the country, was finally settled late that year, or so everyone thought. Early in October of 1969, a driver for Stoney's Trucking Company of North Jackson, just outside Youngstown, was fired. The company said he had accumulated 3 chargeable accidents in a 1-month period, but the driver claimed he was fired because he started a petition calling for election of new Teamster shop stewards. Many other Stoney drivers who were members of FASH as well as the Teamsters went on strike and set up picket lines near the entrance to the Republic Steel plant in Youngstown, where Stoney's delivered steel. The area is known as Stop 5, a name dating back to the era of the streetcar. Drivers who stayed on with Stoney's Trucking Company and others hired to replace the strikers continued to haul steel. This led to incidents of violence. Drivers charged that their rigs were stoned, that they were shot at, or received threatening phone calls. Incidents of violence continued into the last week of October, despite some arrests and a court order barring interference with the trucks. On October 27th, a group of 55 Stoney drivers met with John Angelo, Secretary-Treasurer of the Teamster Local, and other officials, demanding that the Teamsters give them protection. Angelo directed them to report for work the following day as usual and let the chips fall where they may. A 9-truck convoy was scheduled to leave the Stoney Truck Terminal at North Jackson for Youngstown the following day. Normally, due to earlier violence, State Highway Patrolmen and Sheriff's deputies would be notified to provide escort for the convoy into Youngstown, where the city police would join it. For reasons unknown, Jerry Stoneburner, head of the trucking firm, did not notify the sheriff or the highway patrol. Teamster official John Angelo reportedly phoned Stoneburner and asked him to hold up the convoy until he, Angelo, arrived at the truck terminal. A short time later, at least 21 cars loaded with Teamster members arrived at the terminal with Angelo. They piled out of their cars armed with baseball bats and golf clubs. As a means of identification, a light-colored blanket was torn into strips and used as armbands. After consultation with trucking company officials, Angelo ordered everyone to move out. At 12:20, 9 steel-laden rigs interspersed with cars carrying Teamsters formed a convoy and headed for the Republic Steel plant at Stop 5, about 10 miles away. Meanwhile, about 100 members of FASH had gathered at a vacant lot at Stop 5, which they had leased as their picket headquarters. They knew of the convoy and were prepared to deal with it. Angelo was driving the lead car as the convoy approached Stop 5. He stopped his car, stepped out, and yelled to the pickets that he'd suspend them from the Teamsters Union. At this point, the battle began. During the early confusion, several trucks drove through the area and made it into the steel plant. The others could not get through. WFMJ was able to capture exclusive news film of the battle because of some foresight in rushing 2 news teams to a parking lot next to the FASH lot just before the confrontation. We filmed the battle from between the 2 factions, while reporters and photographers from our competing stations attempted to cover the action from a block away. At one point during the fight, a large hammer landed at our feet. It might have been meant to scare us, but we'll never know for sure. A tear gas cartridge exploded a few feet away and sent us scurrying, coughing, and choking. During the film, you'll hear me caution our photographer, Hank Perkins, to move back. The FASH group was to our right, the Teamsters to our left, but the battle line ran diagonally. With both sides firing guns and throwing things, there was a danger that if we got too close to the action, that the FASH group would be nearly behind us. Here then is the Battle of Stop 5 as WFMJ TV recorded it.
That's Angela.
Oh, is it, John? Yeah.
That's Judy Samarone.
Yeah. John. Look out, Hank. Move back. Move back, Hank. Move back, Hank. Guys. Get back, Hank. Get back, Hank. Is it? Get back, Hank. Get back.
This guy can be done right here, man. Right out here.
Get back, Hank.
Give me that car. You want to go with you, Whitey?
You know that? You know
They're from Detroit.
Yes, we know they're from Detroit. They've been around before, 2 years ago, some of them.
Some of them are construction workers.
That's
They
right.
ain't even got nothing to do with truckers.
Some of them are that don't work. They do this every day.
In other words, you're saying they're strike breakers.
Yeah, that's exactly what they are. $50 a day men and all they can drink and eat.
During the violent encounter, one man, a teamster from Cleveland, was killed. 6 others sought treatment at local hospitals for gunshot wounds. Many others were injured during the rock-throwing, fist-swinging brawl that preceded the gunfire. Many simply did not report that they were wounded or injured, apparently fearful of the publicity or possible arrest. After about 2 hours of milling about, the local president of FASH, Mike Bueno, agreed to permit the remaining Stony trucks to enter the plant. Again, WFMJ TV recorded the tense action exclusively, while our competition merely looked on from a distance. We topped off our coverage with a dramatic interview with the FASH president.
Mr. Angelo, I understand you led the convoy. Can you tell me what happened when you first got to the scene of Stop 5? To your car? Do you want to say anything, Shake?
Not right. Okay. Okay.
like driving a truck?
Emergency, because if he don't, there's going to be 1,000 guys in here by morning. If they want more people killed, it's silly. There's going to be 1,000 people here tomorrow. The mayor's got to do something.
So you're going down now and talk to the mayor?
Yeah.
Is this at your request, Mike?
Yes.
What are you going to ask the mayor, Mike? What are you going to tell him?
Ask the mayor to declare a state of emergency. When all the rest of the steel haulers find out what's happened here, they'll all be in here tomorrow morning. We don't want a repetition of what happened here today. This isn't going to solve nothing. I made a proposal to Stoney's last night. I sent it to him, and he ignored it. He came down here with the Teamsters, and the Teamsters shot it out, shot our people. Well, tomorrow morning, I hope to God that the mayor will act. The mayor should have acted today, and this wouldn't have happened. There's no doubt in my mind if he would have acted today and not let it politics enter into this. John Angelo says he controls 6,000 votes and he scares the mayor. John Angelo don't control 6,000 votes because we're about 1,200 of them. And we don't vote like John Angelo tells us. And we're not going to vote like John Angelo tells us. And the mayor better get that straight. He's so afraid of John Angelo, it's pathetic. Every time John Angelo calls him, he jumps out of his chair. And that's why all this happened today, because the mayor didn't have the foresight to see what was going to happen.
Mike.
9 men, including Teamster official John Angelo, were indicted by a special county grand jury which is probing the violence at Stop 5. The grand jury has recessed, but will reconvene early in April to resume their investigation, and more indictments are promised. A federal grand jury in Cleveland will also investigate the incident, and at this point has subpoenaed all records of the Teamster local. When the county grand jury issued its partial report, it included this paragraph. It is the grand jury's considered unanimous judgment that any success which might be attributed to us by the citizens of this community depended almost entirely on the evidence gathered at the scene by members of the press, radio, and television in our community. These people are the unsung heroes who photographed, recorded, and reported it like it was directly from the spot, and despite imminent danger of open gunfire and violence. It closed, without their service and contributions, our mission would have surely failed. WFMJ TV's news film, along with that of one of our competitors, was viewed by the grand jury. They asked to see our news film twice and called our news director to testify 3 times. We take humbly a large part of the credit for the success of the grand jury's investigation, and we hope you agree. This is Ed Barron. Thank you for your consideration.
John, get up.
Not back here, please. We got it already.
This sounds like Korea.